She called me trouble the very first night we met. The way she said it, half amused, half warning, should have pushed me away. But instead, it only pulled me closer, because sometimes, the trouble you're warned about is the only thing your heart truly wants. When I first moved into the building, I didn't expect my new life to begin with a box slipping out of my hands. It was late evening, and the hallway was unusually quiet, except for the sound of my shoes scraping against the floor as I carried the last of my things. The box was heavier than I admitted to myself, and when it nearly tipped, a voice floated from behind me. Careful. Trouble like you shouldn't be trusted with fragile things. I turned, startled. There she was, my neighbor. A woman with an air of quiet confidence, standing in her doorway, arms folded lightly across her chest. Her hair framed her face in soft waves, her posture relaxed yet commanding. She looked at me as though she'd already figured me out. Trouble? I asked, setting the box down with a half-smile. Her lips curved, not into a full smile but something subtler, teasing, deliberate. New neighbors always are. You bring noise, clutter, and, well, let's just say, temptation. For a moment, I wasn't sure how to reply. I just noticed the faint scent of something warm, vanilla mixed with coffee, drifting from her apartment. The glow of her lamp spilled into the hallway, golden against the dim lighting, brushing over her skin like it had been painted there. I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. I'll try to keep the noise down, then. Her eyes lingered on me, steady and knowing. We'll see. And just like that, she disappeared back inside, closing the door with a soft click. I stood there for a moment, the weight of the box forgotten, listening to the echo of her words. Trouble. The way she'd said it wasn't sharp, wasn't cruel, it was playful, almost testing, like she wanted to see what I'd do with it. The rest of the night, as I unpacked in my small apartment, her presence kept weaving back into my thoughts. I'd only caught glimpses, her voice, her eyes, the way she leaned against the doorway like she'd been standing there for centuries, but it was enough to leave an impression. Neighbors are supposed to be background characters in your life. People you nod to in elevators, pass in hallways, maybe borrow sugar from once or twice. But something about her told me she wouldn't stay in the background for long. I didn't know it yet, but that single word she'd given me, trouble, was the start of something that would pull me into a story I couldn't resist. The days that followed felt strangely alive, as though the building itself carried her presence. Every time I stepped into the hallway, I half expected to hear her door creak open, to catch another remark about me being trouble. At first, our encounters were small, almost ordinary. Passing each other in the hallway, we exchanged polite greetings, hers tinged with that playful curve of her lips, mine awkward but genuine. In the elevator, standing side by side, I noticed she always carried herself with ease. Even silence didn't feel empty next to her, it felt intentional, as though she chose every pause the way she chose her words. One evening, I returned late from work, tired and hungry, fumbling for keys when her door opened. She held a covered dish in her hands. Made too much, she said casually, extending it toward me. Thought you could use something better than instant noodles. Her fingers brushed mine as I took the plate, a light touch, almost nothing, yet it sent an unexplainable warmth racing up my arm. I smiled, grateful, though my voice betrayed my surprise. You didn't have to. Her eyes softened. I know. But I wanted to. That was the first time I saw a different side of her, not just confident, teasing, but quietly kind. I carried the dish inside, the rich aroma filling my apartment, reminding me that her presence lingered even here. Over the next week, these small gestures became a pattern. A faint smile when our paths crossed. A comment about my late nights. A moment where she steadied the elevator door so I wouldn't miss it. None of it was dramatic, but each little act stitched her deeper into the fabric of my days. And yet, beneath the warmth, there was always a subtle restraint. I caught it in the way she sometimes glanced away too quickly, or how her laughter would trail off as though she had suddenly remembered a reason to guard herself. Still, I found myself noticing details I shouldn't have: the faint perfume she wore, how her hair caught the light near the windows, the calm rhythm in her voice when she asked me about work. She was my neighbor, nothing more, but every brush of connection felt like a quiet invitation I couldn't ignore. By the end of that week, I realized something. She had called me trouble once. But maybe, just maybe, she was the one I should be careful with. It happened on a rainy evening when the building suddenly went dark. The hum of electricity cut off, leaving only the patter of rain against the windows and the faint groan of pipes settling. I stood in my apartment, holding a useless remote in my hand, when a soft knock sounded at my door. I opened it to find her standing there, a single candle in her hand, its flame flickering shadows across her face. "Power's out," she said, her voice steady but carrying a quiet lilt. "Come on, no sense sitting in the dark. I've got tea." I followed her into her apartment. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed how different it felt: warm, lived in, touched by her. Books stacked on shelves, soft throws draped over chairs, a faint scent of vanilla and jasmine lingering in the air. The candlelight turned everything golden, soft edges where the world usually felt sharp. She set the candle on the table, its glow dancing between us. Steam curled from 2 cups she'd already prepared, waiting as though she had known I'd come. We sat across from each other, knees brushing under the small wooden table. At first, we spoke lightly, about the storm, about the city's unreliable grid. But soon the conversation slipped into deeper waters. She told me about her work, the long hours, the way silence in an empty apartment could feel heavier than noise. Her voice was low, steady, but there was something fragile beneath it. I listened, really listened, feeling the weight of her words settle inside me. When I admitted how lost I sometimes felt, too young to have everything figured out, too old to keep pretending I didn't care, she tilted her head, studying me. There was no judgment in her gaze, only recognition, as if she understood more than she let on. Our laughter came softer after that, less guarded. And when her hand reached for her cup, her fingers grazed mine. Neither of us pulled away immediately. The touch was brief, accidental in form but heavy in meaning. The storm outside rumbled, but in that small room, the silence carried more power. I could hear her breathing, steady yet just a shade deeper than before. My chest rose to match it, as though my body wanted to fall into her rhythm. I don't remember how long we sat there, talking and not talking, the candle burning lower with every passing minute. But when I finally left that night, one thought stayed with me: she had invited me out of the dark, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. The next morning, the storm had passed, but something about the air felt heavier. I ran into her again in the hallway, the sunlight streaming through the narrow windows catching the edges of her hair. She carried a mug of coffee in one hand, casual, but her eyes lingered on me longer than usual. "Late night?" she asked, voice steady, though there was a flicker of something else beneath it: hesitation, maybe. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. "Too much on my mind." She gave a small nod, then sipped her coffee, as though buying herself time. Finally, she looked at me, expression shifting. "Your trouble, you know." The words were light, almost teasing, but the way she said them this time felt different. Less playful, more cautious. Like she was trying to draw a line that neither of us had acknowledged until now. I leaned against the wall, watching her. "You've told me that before," I said, letting a half-smile touch my lips. "But you keep saying it, so maybe it's not me that's the problem." Her brow lifted. "Oh. And what do you think is?" I let the silence hang, not rushing, not afraid of it. Then I replied, quiet but certain, that you can't resist trouble. Her hand tightened slightly on the mug, the faintest tremor before she steadied it. She looked away for a moment, the muscles in her jaw tightening as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Instead, the pause stretched between us, charged, alive. I could hear the faint hum of a refrigerator down the hall, the distant sound of traffic outside, but here, in this small corner of the world, it felt like the only thing that existed was the unspoken truth between us. Finally, she exhaled, almost a laugh but too fragile to be called one. "You're too young to play this game," she murmured, not quite meeting my eyes. "Maybe," I admitted softly. "But that doesn't mean I don't know what I feel." Her gaze flicked back to mine then, sharp and searching, as though she was trying to measure the weight of my sincerity. And for the briefest moment, I thought she might step closer, that the distance between us might finally close. But instead, she pulled the mug tighter against her chest, offering me only a faint smile, one that carried both affection and restraint. "Careful," she said. "Some trouble isn't worth the risk." And with that, she walked past me, her perfume lingering in the air, leaving me with the ache of words I couldn't take back, and the certainty that neither of us believed her warning. It was late, long past the time when most of the building had gone quiet. I had gone outside for air, needing to clear my head, when I found her sitting on the steps near the entrance, wrapped in a light shawl. The glow from the street lamp caught her profile, softening her features, making her look almost untouchable. "You're out late," I said gently. She glanced up, her expression calm but her eyes carrying the weight of unspoken thoughts. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. "The night felt too still." Without asking, I sat beside her. For a while, neither of us spoke. The city hummed faintly around us, the rustle of leaves, the distant bark of a dog, the low hum of passing cars. It felt as though the world had shrunk down to just the two of us, suspended in that quiet space. "Want to walk?" I finally asked. She hesitated, then nodded. We wandered slowly through the nearby park, the paths lined with trees whispering under the breeze. Our shoulders brushed once, twice, until eventually neither of us moved away. The contact was subtle, almost accidental, but the warmth of it spread through me like a secret I wasn't supposed to hold. At one point, she stopped, looking up at the dark sky where clouds moved lazily across the moon. "I haven't let someone close in a long time," she said quietly. The vulnerability in her voice made my chest tighten. I turned toward her, studying her face in the half-light. "Why?" I asked. She gave a faint, self-protective smile. "Life teaches you things. That it's easier to be strong alone than risk being disappointed." I nodded, then spoke before doubt could stop me. "I don't know much. But I know I've never felt this drawn to anyone before." Her eyes lingered on mine then, and I could see the conflict flickering behind them. A part of her wanted to step back, but another part stayed rooted there, shoulders still pressed against mine. The night seemed to hold its breath. Every detail sharpened, the chill in the air, the faint scent of her perfume mixing with the grass, the way her hand hovered near mine, not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel its presence like a pulse. And though neither of us spoke it aloud, we both knew something had shifted. We had crossed some invisible boundary, not with words, not with declarations, but with silence, closeness, and the kind of honesty that lingers long after the night ends. It happened on a quiet evening, the kind where time felt slower, like the world itself was holding its breath. I had just returned from a long day, exhaustion clinging to me, when I heard a knock at my door. She stood there, holding a small bag in one hand. "You forgot this in the lobby," she said, her tone casual, though her eyes carried that same steady warmth I had come to depend on. I thanked her, but instead of leaving, she lingered. Her gaze moved past me into the apartment, then back to me. "You look tired," she observed softly. Before I could answer, she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. There was no plan, no reason for it, but somehow, it felt natural. She noticed the tie draped carelessly over the chair, picked it up, and turned toward me. "You really don't know how to keep this straight, do you?" she teased, shaking her head lightly. I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. "Guilty. Come here." Her voice was gentle but left no room for hesitation. I stepped closer. She reached up, looping the tie around my collar. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, brushing against my chest, grazing the skin at my throat as she tightened the knot. Each touch was small, innocent on the surface, but it sent a charge through me, sharp and undeniable. When she looked up, our eyes locked. The space between us felt unbearably small, filled with the quiet thrum of something neither of us dared to name. Her breath brushed my cheek, warm, steady, as though she was close enough to read the rhythm of my heart. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that single moment. I wanted to lean in, to erase the inches between us, to let what we both felt finally break free. And she almost let me. Her eyes softened, her lips parted slightly, an unspoken invitation. But then, just as quickly, she pulled back. Her hands slipped from the tie, falling to her sides. She turned away, whispering, almost to herself, "This can't happen." The words struck harder than I expected. I stood there, silent, the weight of the moment pressing down. I wanted to protest, to tell her she was wrong, but something in her posture, in the way she held herself tightly together, stopped me. So I said nothing. And in that silence, the ache between us grew heavier, sharper, impossible to ignore. For days after that night, her words lingered in my head. "This can't happen." They echoed louder than they should have, weaving through my thoughts each time I saw her in the hallway, each time I caught a glimpse of her door closing just a little too quickly. I tried to convince myself to pull back, to respect the invisible line she'd drawn. But the truth was, I couldn't. Not when every look, every accidental brush of her hand, every silence between us carried more weight than any words could. One evening, restless, I stepped outside. The night was calm, the city hushed in a way that made everything feel suspended. That's when I saw her. She was sitting alone on the bench near the courtyard, wrapped in a shawl, her shoulders slightly hunched as if holding the night's chill inside her. I walked over quietly. "Couldn't sleep again?" I asked. She looked up, surprised, then gave a soft, tired smile. "Something like that." I sat beside her, leaving just enough space to keep it safe, but close enough that I could feel the edge of her warmth. For a while, we didn't speak. The only sound was the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of the city. Finally, I reached out, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. My hand brushed against hers on the bench. This time, she didn't move. Instead, her fingers shifted, threading lightly through mine. Her voice came low, almost a whisper. "I told myself you were trouble." I turned toward her, my chest tightening. "And?" She hesitated, then exhaled, her shoulders softening as though she was laying down a weight she had carried too long. "And maybe, trouble is exactly what I needed." Her head leaned gently against my shoulder, her hair brushing my jaw. I felt her breathing settle, slow and steady, sinking with mine. In that moment, the world didn't feel so complicated. There was no need for declarations, no grand promises, just the quiet truth of her choosing not to pull away. I tightened my hand around hers, grounding us both. The night air was cool, but the warmth between us was steady, undeniable. She had called me trouble the very first night we met. And maybe she was right. But as she rested against me, I realized something. Sometimes, the trouble you're warned about is the very thing that saves you. And that's how a word meant as a warning became the start of something neither of us expected. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive when it's convenient, or when it makes sense, it arrives when it chooses, and all we can do is decide whether to push it away, or finally hold on. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video so more people can discover it. And if you'd like to hear more age gap romances and slow burn love stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell, so you never miss the next one.